Back when I made my Atelier Yumiya review in March of this year and called it one of my favorite new RPGs, there were a few comments calling me a paid shill since I had gotten a review copy of the game. So just get ready to call me that again because I think Atelier Resleriana, the Red Alchemist, and the White Guardian is another banger by Gust and Koei Tecmo. It shouldn't really be that much of a secret that I like RPGs with awesome customization features and really good combat, as I've made an entire channel off making videos on those and specializing guides. Like, come on guys, I love Xenoblade, and I even talked about my love for Sophie 2 in particular on my top 10 of 2024 list last year. Once again, another Atelier game has delivered wonderfully on those strong customization options and fun combat, while also having very nice character writing. I will say this game is a lot different than Yumiya in how it is designed. Whereas Yumiya had a big exploration focus and more action-style combat, Resleriana is a hometown game with extremely fun turn-based combat instead, where the exploration is definitely not the biggest aspect. One of the things I found with Yumiya is that newcomers of the series really liked the game, but longtime fans didn't much care for it since it was very different from a lot of the fundamental systems Atelier was known for, and the alchemy was too easy and too abusable, and crafting was not a big focus of the game itself. I can definitely say that this game is much more of a game with the older design philosophy in mind, where crafting matters a lot more, and I think longtime fans will appreciate it more. Now personally, I like both styles because I just like fun RPGs with cute girls, and this series has consistently scratched that itch for those types of games, and it is quickly becoming one of my favorite RPG series with quite a few in my top 50, and Sophie 2 in particular entrenching its way into my top 10. But as this is a review on Resleriana in particular, let's get into that. Huge thanks to Koei Tecmo America for providing me with the review copy. I greatly appreciate it. As always, if you enjoy content on RPGs, do consider subscribing because it does help me out so much, and I'm very close to hitting that 100,000 subscribers mark and would really love to hit that milestone. Let's get into it. So I would like to clarify before you get really confused, I am not gassing up the Defunct in the West gacha game. This is actually its own regular RPG that simply happens to take place in the world of the gacha. Now, I have never played the gacha, but I assume this is so you can have the crossover elements of all the protagonists appearing, so you can have a cool party of characters and fun crossovers and references. Regardless, though, the two main characters of this game are completely original characters not in the gacha, and this is a story about them more than anything, and you can still very easily play this standalone if you don't care about those references. I will say my biggest issue with the game does come from some of those forced connections to the gacha, but more on that later. So if you are new to Atelier or clicked on this video just to see what the game is like, to give you an idea, Atelier is an RPG series where you typically take control of an alchemist, and much of the game will likely be focused on her journey and growth as an alchemist. These are usually more lighthearted RPGs that focus on fun character interactions. Normally the games themselves are named after this alchemist, but in this case the main character's name is Rias, and for whatever reason the game is called Resleriana, I guess to simply signify that it is connected to the gacha. These games have a much bigger focus on the crafting or synthesis aspect compared to other RPGs, since, as I said, you are controlling an alchemist. Pretty much all of your strongest equipment and items are going to be made with the synthesis feature in these games, and if you understand how these features work, you can be very strong and not have any issues even on the highest difficulty if you're willing to put in the work to optimize your gear. A lot of the quests will have you make stuff with synthesis for delivery, and typically this is a fundamental aspect of the game. Now, like I said, I love optimizing and customization features like this, and I love the freedom and flexibility these games give you with that aspect. The premise for this game in particular involves Rias and Slade, the two main characters, rebuilding their hometown after a disaster 12 years ago essentially caused most of the residents to disappear. Much of the setting of the game involves investing in the hometown and building it up so it can be back to its former glory. In that sense, it's significantly different than Yumiya, but I had a lot of fun with these aspects as well, and the core of what I really like about the gameplay of these games is still there. Let's talk about the two highlights of the gameplay in this game first, the combat and the synthesis/alchemy. So the combat system in this game is iterative of the combat system in Sophie 2, which is one of my favorite turn-based systems in any game ever. So you essentially have a front line and a back line in this game, and all 6 party members can very easily be involved in combat in any given battle. It is a turn order system with a lot of ways to allow your own characters to move more often, while delaying enemy turns, which are some of the keys to success, since turns are the best resource you can have in a turn-based game. At its basic level, you can have a normal generic attack, the ability to use skills which cost AP to use, and items which are usually some of the more powerful options if you have crafted them to be powerful. So far, these are pretty straightforward, but the defining feature that is very similar to what I loved in Sophie 2 is the multi-action feature. If you have enough TP, which are the star resource above the character health bar, you can select this option to select up to 2 different characters in your backline and allow them to perform actions as well at reduced AP consumption. This also will move the last person who attacks to the front row, allowing you to control which characters are in the front and back, and maybe save characters low on health. You can also use back row characters to apply buffs or heals to your frontline party members without moving them to the front with this feature, since they would not have used an attack. You can also use items in multi-action, and combining certain items allows for item mix, which can give extra powerful attacks as well. In addition, you can also use TP to use the interrupt feature, which allows you to take the next turn no matter what to use an item. Stuff like this is great for influencing the turn order and getting your characters on the turn order bonuses that you want and preventing the enemy from doing so. A lot of skills can do this as well and influence the turn order. This game also has the ability to guard when enemies attack you. You can either hold the button down to always take reduced damage, but you can also try to perfectly time it like a Paper Mario game to take even more reduced damage. The timing is really generous, and you aren't really punished super heavily for not getting it, thankfully, unless your gear is bad and you're on very hard. This game has 3 speed options in combat, which just speeds up all of the animations, and I usually played on the middle setting and still never had an issue really nailing this timing, but I could probably play on the highest setting and still nail the timing pretty easily. As you use skills, you also fill up the Unite gauge near the bottom left, which can give you more bonuses in combat, like extra attacks if you can chain your own character's attacks together in a row, and manipulate the turn order properly. And upon maxing it out, you can enter a burst phase and do massive damage and special attacks. As this is not a combat guide, I don't want to go into too much detail, but trust me when I say it's a super fun system and one I enjoy a lot. I will also say I'm very impressed with how well balanced all 6 party members are in this game. All have their own niches and feel good to use depending on the situation, and I've never felt like any of them are useless. I end up crafting gear for all of them by the end of the game. Speaking of the crafting, that's another very fun aspect of this game and one of the draws of this series. In many games, I've spent hours trying to figure out a way I can optimize and create the best gear, and for a lot of this game, that was no different. On the surface, you can simply select the right ingredients to make the item you want, but there is a massive amount of things you can do to increase the item level of what you are making, to make the effect stronger, and a lot of ways you can optimize your materials to add traits to the items to make them a lot more powerful. This game uses a new crafting system using gift colors. Essentially, this game has colors for each material you collect in the world, a left color and a right color. By linking 2 of the same color together in synthesis between different materials, you can pass on traits to that item and often increase stats or get bonus effects based on the items you used. When crafting an item, you can also influence what the final color of that item will be based on whatever color the second to last material you have linked was, meaning you can make something the exact right color you need to craft it into something else. As you might expect, it can be very complex, and you can set up entire spreadsheets for just keeping track of the different colors you want, as well as kind of optimizing the traits on the items that you make so you can get the exact perfect traits you want on your final item that you are trying to craft. You can also upgrade these items even further with the Enhance feature, which allows you to get even more powerful traits and level the items all the way up to level 120, which is the maximum in the game, and get some extra additional bonus effects. There's a lot of very, very cool things about the crafting, but since this is also not a crafting guide and something with all that complexity would also need its own video that I'd like to make, I'm not going to go into that much further here, but there's a lot of very cool things you can do with this system, and it was a ton of fun to figure out how the intricacies of it worked. Much of the game, you'll be exploring areas nearby to the town to gather materials, with further areas later in the game unlocking better materials, allowing you to craft even better equipment and items. The exploration aspect in this game isn't anything too special, especially compared to something like Yumiya, but it does get the job done. I will say a lot of the game does have these randomly generated and replayable dungeons where you can gather certain materials, which can be a little boring at times compared to the actual areas, but as this is not really a game with a large focus on those aspects compared to the other aspects of gameplay, I don't consider this a huge deal, but it is worth mentioning since those randomly generated dungeons are probably the most boring aspect of the gameplay. The final important aspects of gameplay to mention are how you can kind of build up your hometown and manage it. Usually by finding certain materials or crafting certain items as well as investing a lot of money into the town, you can level up aspects of the town which will allow you to get better items and more money and have more visitors appear, which means even more money. You can also make a lot of money and attract people to the town with your shop. This shop is a great way to sell unneeded items and materials in this game, and it's going to be your primary source of income, and this is a very money-hungry game, so you definitely want to make sure you're doing this. The game absolutely expects you to do this, and it isn't too hard to figure out how to get a lot of money and resources from this feature. This part was definitely a little bit more tedious than other aspects of gameplay to me since I'm not super into town sims, but it is a nice feature to get a lot of money and test out your items easier, or make crafting simpler since you need a lot of money to duplicate items that you create too, especially if you want to duplicate very important synthesis parts. One piece of advice I'll give if you are playing the game is make sure you get the item gathering skills on Rias' skill tree as soon as possible, since more materials when gathering will always be incredibly beneficial to have. Alright, let's talk about the writing now. So first of all, the character writing is solid as usual. I think Rias is a very fun lead character. Airheaded Genki girls are like my type in general, and Rias kind of fits the bill. I knew after like 30 minutes of playing, I was going to end up liking her a lot as a protagonist, and boy, did I like her a lot by the end. Like, look at this adorable level up animation. Also, her design slaps. Also, just everything about her is wonderful. The ears, the gradient color, they cooked with this. This is a great character. I really like her a lot. Rias also has a great dynamic with the male lead Slade. I think they kind of play off each other super well, and I really liked how their relationship grew throughout the game. To me, this is going to be the biggest highlight of the writing of this game. The other party members that you have are all guest characters from other games. Now, I have not played all of the games in the series, so I missed some of the references here, but I have played Sophie and Toturi, so from what I can tell, these characters are not here to get anything that really adds to their own character arcs, but more so act as additional mentor figures to the main two, and have fun events filled with references that remind you why you love these characters, and just have fun interactions with the new characters in this game. For me in particular, I love Sophie. She's my favorite in the series, so another playable appearance with her and seeing all her quirks and interactions with the broader cast brought me a lot of joy. Seriously though, just look how cute she is. What I'm saying is that if you like cute girls, this series rocks. I do have to say I was very impressed with just how expressive and vibrant the character models in this game look. Feels like they're always doing different poses, making different facial expressions. You can see changes in their eyes. It honestly might just be the most I've been impressed with 3D models in a game ever. They all look really, really good in this game, which I think brings out a lot of the charm in the game more. The actual plot is nothing overly special, but it's pretty solid and has a nice resolution and a lot of great character moments along the way. I will say this does lead into my biggest issue with this game, which is just that there are a lot of forced gacha connections, since this is going to be in the same universe as the gacha. On one hand, yeah, it allows for the guest appearances of all of these characters since they kind of got isekai'd into this world, but there's also a lot of moments where it feels like they are advertising the gacha almost, like it when a couple of antagonists appear briefly before not being relevant the rest of the game, and kind of just existing to probably foreshadow something in the future of the gacha itself. The gacha protagonist herself has some random relevance at a couple points in the game, and the game assumes you are supposed to really care about her. I don't really know if I really cared about her since I didn't really know who she was, and I was way more invested in Rias anyway. Since I have not played the gacha and I have no way to play the gacha anymore unless I learn Japanese, a lot of these references were just lost on me, and I was not a fan of how forced a lot of these connections seemed to, especially without any context to them. Fortunately, it isn't too distracting to everything that makes the game good, so it isn't a major complaint, but it is something that did hinder my enjoyment of the game. All in all, though, if you do like cute girls, the writing is awesome, and I really like Rias as a character, and all of the character dynamics are a lot of fun. I will also say, for as fun and cool as the crafting and combat are, there isn't a lot of hard content or post-game content as of now to really use it on. You can hit some pretty crazy numbers in this game with a lot of optimization and understanding, but when most bosses on the highest difficulty don't even have anywhere near this much health, then it can feel a bit pointless outside of just having fun breaking things. So I hope they add some cool and difficult new content soon, since this is just something they tend to do in these games. As you may expect, the OST is fantastic in this game also. There were some really great boss battle themes with vocals in them that were the biggest highlights to me, but overall the entire OST is pretty great throughout, as you may expect from an RPG like this. They haven't really let me down with the OST in these games yet. This game also has fantastic art. A big feature of the Atelier series is that important character or story events will often get these beautiful CGs, and I adore every single one of them. The art is fantastic and make me love the characters even more. Performance-wise, I should mention I played on PC, and I don't remember any major issues, no crashes or major bugs this time around, which is really nice. The game does have autosave just in case something does happen and I miss something, but I fortunately did not have any issues myself. There's also a super useful guide section that can help you track useful items you may need to find, and also give you general tips about the game or just tell you about certain traits or if you forgot something or anything like that. So there's really useful resources within the game itself that can help you out plenty, which is also very nice if you're playing the game early and can't look up anything online. I'm sure for the rest of you, you'll probably be able to look things up online if you really don't understand something. There'll probably be a lot of online resources posted for these games as usual. I'll probably post a couple myself even. All around though, I think Resleriana, the Red Alchemist, and White Guardian is a fantastic game. It satisfies everything I really like about RPGs while playing to the strengths of the series, and I think those who prefer the older style of how Atelier games were designed will end up liking this more than Yumiya. Personally, I probably like both around the same, with maybe a slight preference to Yumiya because I'm a sucker for good exploration and I really like a lot of the systems in that game too, but both are fantastic experiences. If I were to give it a number rating, I'd probably go for a 9 out of 10. This series is very quickly becoming one of my favorites, and this game is another reason why. Please consider giving it a try if it looked remotely interesting to you in this video, because I do think it is a lot of fun, and it has a lot of things about RPGs I truly enjoy, like deep combat and great customization. If you're a fan of those aspects of Xenoblade or other games I've shown on this channel, I do genuinely think you would like this one. But hey, if you do want to play the other Atelier games first to make sure you get all those references, you absolutely can do that as well. They're all really fun games so far from what I've played. Thank you guys so much for watching, and once again, huge thanks to Koei Tecmo America for being a very cool company and giving me this review code. There's a good chance I'll end up making a more detailed crafting and combat guide for this game, since I do think it could benefit from it, so please do look forward to that. And please, once again, do consider subscribing to the channel, as all support would be greatly appreciated, and I do want to hit that 100,000 milestone. Thank you all so much for watching, have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you back here soon.